So, if it's inconvenient or like you don't see what might benefit you, then you kind of just shy away from it. So that kind of makes me think of how much talent have we lost? Like how many international sprinters or athletes could South Africa have had if our schooling systems, if our schooling systems were more supportive of resources and, nurturing talent, that type of thing. You talk about teachers. We had a teacher, Mr. Fox. Wait, Mr. Wolf. He was short. These piercing green eyes. And very serious. And athletic build, like muscular and stuff. So he was and he loved using his whistle all the time. So he was very like regimented about when we had physical education, and he would push us. But depending on, I think there maybe were two like teachers, and that was like in primary school. I went to Vanguard Primary School, and he would take us for physical education. And sometimes they would take it seriously, and sometimes they wouldn't. So that's why I think the children also develop like such a lax attitude, because you're like, well, the teacher doesn't take it seriously, so how much I take it seriously? Like, you're forcing me to do this, and like maybe I could just tick me off, and we can just like not do anything. I remember there were times we would just sit on the field and be like, this is like our chill period. Exactly.
Be outside the class.
Yeah. I do, when I think about teachers, I also realized there wasn't like a variety. So we had Mr. Martin was our principal at Bangor Primary for a while, and he was considered white. Because he also had, and he spoke like this, and he's like, okay, school, okay, Vanguard, okay, kids, and he would speak with an accent. And for us, he seemed white, just because no one spoke that way. And I'm not mentioning this because I have anything against it, but it's a very uncommon thing in the colored community, or even in the black community, to have a teacher that is not of
same race.
Yes, not of the same race. And it seems like it was purposefully done. And we would pay attention to the teachers who are a little fairer, because that's also not common. Everybody's usually like similar features or that type of thing. And then in high school, we had one or two white teachers. Miss Fogarty, I can't remember what she taught. I think it was like physics and something. And then we had our librarian was white. And sometimes you wondered like why they decided to, because often what the association is if they were at a school, a white school or a private school, they would get paid more. So why did they choose to be at our school? Because our school was supported by the government, by the Department of Education. So the salaries weren't as good as they were at private schools. So I think why I'm mentioning it is because there's such a lot of classism in our community that we don't actually know how other people live always, So only after high school, and maybe even when I started working, that's when I got more exposed to different classes and different races and how they really live.
Oh, we thought Mrs. Hendricks was a teacher, a female English teacher.
Mrs. Hendricks, our principal, the one that was our principal at Livingston. Yes, what about her?
The English teacher was your principal?
No, you're talking about Mrs. Ardenser.
Oh, Miss Ardenser.
Ardenser was an English teacher, my own teacher.
I always thought that she was a white teacher.
See, my mom whispered that. She whispered it. It's like, you don't say it.
We weren't sure.
Say white.
We were not supposed to ask. Yeah. You're just skeptical.
And that's how it is. And I think that's why I want to almost normalize talking about these things, because we whisper them, we wonder. And I think that's how a lot of inappropriate opinions or perspectives develop, because we don't want to just tackle it in a way that, hey, I want to speak about it, but I want to speak about it because I want to understand, I want to build a bridge of conversation here. So I'm going to say black, I'm going to say white, I'm going to say classism. Why? Not because I'm trying to create a barrier between us, but because I'm trying to create a bridge of conversation. But
Okay.
English was my favorite subject. So I enjoyed the classes. The unfortunate thing for me though was I always chose the wrong time to whisper in class. You see, there was something about me that when I whisper, then the teacher turns. So my mouth could be closed all through the day. But when I open my mouth, the teacher turns around. so that was my issue, my burden while going to school. It's ridiculous.
I'm not gonna share that. I'm not gonna share in your story. I had a similar story.
Yeah, you did.
Yes.
So there's a term called Sonderboek. Please explain what Sonderboek means.
Yes. When somebody else does something wrong and the other person is left to bear the brunt. So it's somebody talks to me from behind and I turn around to listen to what she says, then I am being punished for turning around to hear what she has to say. So I truly can say I wasn't the culprit, but because I want to listen to her, I had to bear the brunt. And the punishment for talking in class is go outside, go stand outside.
I promise you, I think this was an hereditary issue because this happened in high school, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was high school, okay, a little in primary school too. But also, so I would always get the scolding. Yeah, I don't know, it must be hereditary. Sonderboek. Direct translation, bok. What is the word for book? Like a book?
No, I can't explain that in English, but it's
Animal,
when
the
you
animal.
are punished.
It's like a
for
sacrificial
something
lamb,
else.
you know, like a sacrificial lamb. Like you are the one that has to take all the answers. Anyway, going
Yeah,
over
but-
that, yes. So then, in terms of socializing, I know socializing in different colored schools. What's interesting is that there was always comparison. Like we had a school called SP Southern Peninsula, who we were close neighbors to. I think they were in the area. So Livingston is in the Claremont-Claridge area, I think it's considered even. But we were very competitive with
They
them,
were in the
particularly,
area.
yes, in academics. So even between us, we would compare. You know, they would be better in sports and we might be better in academics. So there was that competitive nature between schools. But I think that's very common everywhere. Do you remember something like that? You being competitive, your school being competitive. You went to Oaklands, right?
Just for 2 years.
Okay.
But Belgrave was the first high school I went to. And there, of course, I forgot to say that that school was dual, a bilingual school, but up to that time it was called Standard 8. So if you were not continuing your schooling in Afrikaans, you had to go and find, like, if you were doing your schooling in English, you had to go and find another school, or we were allocated to another school where 9 and 10 would be the English medium.
So you
For
had
9
to
and
change
10.
schools.
We had to
because of
change school
language.
because of the language.
Yeah. If you had a preference, you had to change.
Yeah, but it was difficult at that stage to switch to all, even to remain in Afrikaans. It's not that I was we grew up speaking Afrikaans, but the subjects was easier dealt with in English, like science, maths, biology, history. I think it was history.
I remember with us, all of my schooling was in English. I remember them having Xhosa at high school. I don't know if they had it at primary school, but I would also remember them removing Xhosa as an option even at high school. And I don't know why, because it's such a common language spoken in Cape Town, you know? There's a large community of Xhosa people, smaller, bigger than the Zulu population in Cape Town. And I never understood why. Also, when I think about the Xhosa community or Xhosa students that were at my primary or high school, I do remember, it's almost like they had to prove themselves a little more. And that always used to make me sad, because just because they speak another language just doesn't affect their intelligence. Yes, sometimes they might need to study a little harder, because it's literally you studying a subject in another language, so it's like translating everything in your mind. So that for me was a sad thing to remember, just when I started reading about all of the politics when it comes to the code of conduct and the attitude in which teachers teach certain kids. There was one comment I think I read that was shared online to reprimand kids when they spoke in Xhosa, and to say that it's disrespectful for you to do that at school. And I was like, okay, that's
their mother tongue.
Yes, and identity is so tied towards language. How can you tell someone it's disrespectful to speak in your mother tongue? That I thought was very sad, and reading that reminded me that I'd heard a teacher say that, like you shouldn't be speaking in Xhosa. They would say, oh, that's something you do in your break time or after school. And I realized it was also to our detriment, as other students told the colored kids who just mainly spoke English and Afrikaans, then you didn't learn another language. So that was for me a sad thing, to realize that we were more encouraged to be academically strong than to be multilingual. Do you remember that ever being encouraged to be like multilingual?
We didn't have
many
that.
languages.
Yeah, we didn't have that in our school. We didn't have the language choices. English and Afrikaans. That was it. There weren't other languages offered at high school. Not in our school, or I would say, not in Belgravia High, not at Oaklands High. I don't know when that came into being. So I can't speak about the language barriers or language choices in my high school years.